sometimes you're in a situation where you may be training or you're fighting someone, and you can infinitely feel like as you start moving around, this person has a really good ability to control and move me from my feet. When that happens to me, I'm thinking either you're a wrestler or you're some sort of a judoka. And when I start feeling that type of energy, I start thinking strategy-wise, I need to do something to reduce the risk here. I don't want to get thrown, I don't want to end up on the bottom in a bad position. That's when I started to employ this idea of let's pull the guard. Some people come up in jiu-jitsu and no-gi grappling, pulling the guard all the time. For me, as I mentioned earlier, it was a completely foreign concept. I always wanted the top position. That didn't work well for me as I started getting up in the ranks and I started fighting people that were maybe much better, takedown artists than I was. So I had to look for a different way. Also, I started working on using the single leg X guard, and that was upon the advice of my friend Tachi, who's Marcelo's wife, and it worked brilliantly for me. So setting up my strongest sweep, setting up my position, had to come with me initiating a bottom position, and why not develop a way to do that, right? So from this position, we're looking at setting up with the same grips, the 2-on-1 grips, but instead of looking to take my partner down the practical way where I'm like on my feet, I'm looking at diving underneath them. It does look a little bit risky in the sense that I'm going to be exposing both of my hips, but the idea here is I'm going to bait my partner into sort of like this surprise, like, hello, I'm underneath you now, and part of that is going to be able to set up a sweep. So from here, Stefan's going to reach out and grab me again. So again, I look for this 2-on-1 grip, and as we did before, I want to pull him forward so that he gives me a little bit of momentum this way. As he does that, I'm going to look to shoot both my legs in between his legs. As I do that, my hips come up, and I look for the single leg.
So I'm not dropping into mount because I'm worried about my face going on the ground and putting my hands
Exactly. And most people, as you saw with Stefan's reaction, that's a very, normal reaction. Even though we're doing this for the purpose of teaching you, it's actually sort of an unavoidable motion that he's going to be going through. Either way, he's going to feel off balance, and then he may want to have the urge to stand up at some point. But when I get here, I come in for the 2-on-1, I jerk forward, okay? This momentum is what I want to dive both of my legs through. As I do that, his body comes over me. I need to make sure that the first thing that happens is my hips shoot up, not my feet, okay? There's a big difference between throwing my legs up and throwing my hips up. Once I get here, I can squeeze my knees around Stefan's and I trap. Now his reaction could be he stays low because he feels something happening on the bottom, or his reaction is that he stands up, in which case I set him up perfectly for a sweep. What I like about that is I'm using this dynamic motion to make my partner do what I want you to do. I'm not just pulling guard and waiting in a static position.
And you've used this a fair number of times in competition.
I have. The first time I ever pulled guard in competition was in 2010, which was, 9 years after I started fighting, which is amazing when you think about it. People's games are becoming so much more sophisticated these days, and when I started, it was sort of this idea of, let me try and bully the person to the ground, get on top, pass, and finish. I've had to sort of make adjustments to my game, and the first time that I actually pulled guard, I was just kind of shocked and amazed that I did it. I didn't win the match, but the big triumph for me the first time was I actually jumped the guard. As I practiced it more in a live scenario, I ended up having a lot more success with it, and I ended up winning in 2010 the World Championships for no-gi that year, and consequently went on to fight other girls and do the same thing. And now a lot of people, when I do fight them, it is something that they look for because it is that entry and they've seen me do it before. But nonetheless, it's something that I feel confident doing, and it's also something that, again, is an alternate attack when the stand-up stuff isn't working. So sometimes when I'm able to read, or I know beforehand, hey, the person I'm fighting has really good takedowns, or the person I'm fighting has a really good guard and I need to beat them to it, I'm going to employ this movement. So let me break it down for you a little bit more slowly, because if you haven't gotten the first series and you're not sure about the single leg X guard and you haven't studied Marcelo Garcia's game, it's a very important motion to know. You're not going to be splitting your legs. You're not going into a half guard position. You are going to be allowing your partner's legs to straddle your hips to some degree, okay? So it will feel a little bit scary. You might even feel like your partner can sit down and mount you. And don't let me fool you. Your partner will sit down and mount if your hips don't come up in time, okay? So 2-on-1 grip, I'm here. I pull my partner forward and I'm gonna shoot my legs through. For those of you that are more advanced, I want to think about Stefan's arm almost like a vine, and I'm Tarzan or Jane swinging right through, okay? So I'm going to pull and I'm going to dive, and he's over, my hips come up, and my knees pinch together, okay?
You're also pushing this arm up, so I can't really grab your
Yeah,
head.
I want to, if possible, I want to keep Stefan's arms away from coming around and holding behind my head. So again, we talked about head control earlier on in the series. I don't want to allow my partner to latch onto me in any way. So if I can push Stefan's closest arm far away from me, it gives him problems balancing and securing things. And when he actually does get up, it's actually in a very good position for me to sway his body backwards or to hip up and take him down, okay? In the case that you do employ a sweep right away and you use your partner's momentum to your advantage, once again, just like we went over in the last takedown, you have the heels. You stand up and you pick those babies up. You don't want to let these things drop. And when you're ready, you can step over and look to pass. But again, this forward momentum, we want to be efficient with our movement. We don't want to be leaving things hanging. And when we work hard to get something, try and get as much as you can out of it, because you can't take that time or that motion back. We don't want to waste your time going over things that we've covered before in another series, but we will be going over some key points of the single leg X-guard sweep in the sweeping disc on this series. If you actually want to look in the position more in depth, you can either look into our first series, which is how to defeat the bigger, stronger opponent, which Stefan and I did last year. The other thing that you can do is you can also go to mginaction.com. That's Marcelo Garcia's fabulous website. If you really like the positions, he has some awesome entries and different types of techniques that you can really delve into.